As you can see, today's video is totally different, so go ahead and grab something to drink with me or get in a cozy spot because this is a chill video. Hola my beautiful lotus flowers, welcome back or welcome to my channel. If you're into nerding out on everything astrology, spirituality, and self-transformation, this is a community for you. If you've been here, then you're probably wondering what this setting is, or maybe you follow me on social media and have seen my community post here on YouTube and you kind of know what's going on. Brief summary, I've just had some difficulties filming lately, just technical difficulties, and I had already felt before those technical difficulties that maybe I needed to take a little break from YouTube just for a week, just to kind of like replenish myself, because trust me, one video a week while still working a part-time job is still a lot of effort, especially because I put a ton of effort into my videos and I asked you guys, and most of you were actually really willing to just say, take a break, like we'll wait. And as important as that is to take a break, if you feel you need to take a break, take one by all means. But it's not that I necessarily needed like a rest or anything. I wasn't exhausted. I just needed a brief intermission from the type of videos that I normally produce. I also offered you guys to tell me to make a more relaxed video, a more laid back video where I just answer some questions you guys have had and everything. So actually there were more of you than I expected who also voted for that over on my Instagram poll. I decided to do that. So that's why in today's video I have barely any skin makeup on. You can see I'm breaking out. It's supposed to be that time of the month soon. So there's that. I'm just letting them peek out. I didn't really put much skin makeup on, tiny bit of mascara, tiny bit of eyebrows, but we're just embracing our chill, casual selves today in this video. And I have a different background. I'm just in front of my windowsill, which is where I actually keep all of my like altar spiritual items also. Hopefully you guys like that little background change. I just thought it would be a little bit more relaxed. And I have a few questions that I received. The educational videos will continue next week, but I just wanted to go ahead and make this chill, relaxed video. So if this isn't your cup of tea, I'm sorry. But if it is, stick around to learn more about what I have to say on these questions that you guys asked. And I still really appreciate you being here. And I hope this can be kind of a like bonding experience for us. But anyways, without further ado, let's hop into the questions. Question number one is, how do you keep yourself motivated to do your spiritual routines every day? Plot twist, I do not do my spiritual routines every single day. Like I said in my spiritual nighttime routine video, if you try to push yourself every single day to do like a big spiritual routine of some sort, you're going to get very exhausted very fast. Too much of anything is bad. There needs to be a balance. There needs to be time to rest from your spiritual routines. And as crazy as that sounds, especially if you're a beginner and you think that you need to have like a perfect routine set up every day, it gets exhausting. It really does. And you shouldn't be putting that expectation on yourself to do these big routines every single day. I would say do a small thing every day that centers you, but save the big routines for maybe once a week or twice a week, unless you're somebody that it feels effortless to do a big spiritual routine every single day, then that's totally up to you. But if you're somebody who's like, oh my gosh, I have a hard time staying motivated and I don't want to do these routines every day, but I also do want to because I feel like I should, then you should probably embrace that and you should figure out a routine that does work for you. For me, like I said, I do not do some big, huge, like spiritual routine every morning and night. I literally will maybe do some yoga in the morning. I actually just started picking up yoga. I'm finding that yoga is really good for me because it gives me some type of movement and something to do and get in touch with my body versus just sitting there. And I don't want to describe meditation as just sitting there, but it can get repetitive for someone who has as many mutable placements as I do that just wants to switch it up. Again, that's me finding what works for me. So I'll switch between doing yoga and meditation in the morning to doing just yoga in the morning or doing just meditation in the morning. And it doesn't have to be in the morning, even though that is a great time to set yourself up for the day. It can be in the evening also. It can be both. Again, it's just what works for you. You have to customize it for you. Ultimately, I don't do some big routine every single day. However, with that being said, it can be hard sometimes to even get myself to do yoga or to meditate. And that's just the reality of it. You know, we're all humans, we're all different, and we all have our own struggles. And sometimes I do really struggle to ground myself. If you don't know, my chart is very air dominant. And so I am very flighty. And if you're also very air dominant in your chart, leave a comment down below and let me know, because I like to know that you guys understand the struggle. But it can be very hard to ground myself and tell myself to slow down when everything inside me all the time is rushing. And it really conflicts with my Pisces sun sign, because my Pisces sun sign is slow moving, chill, laid back. But inside there's all this anxious turbulence that happens. So the way that I keep myself motivated to ground myself and slow down and take that time is I try to think about how I want to feel. And how I want to feel is calm. I don't want to be living in this anxious feeling. And sometimes when you feel anxious and impatient, that's all you can focus on. I've started to remind myself, how do you want to feel? And I imagine it and I'm like, I want to feel calm. I don't want to feel anxious. I want to feel clear-headed. And that motivates me personally to do those routines that sometimes I don't want to do or I feel too anxious to do. Number 2. What other hobbies/interests do you have besides astrology and spirituality? This is such a fun question because I have not really included much of like who I am on a very personal level on the channel. I do on Instagram more so, but I can tend to be pretty private in general. So as far as hobbies and interests I have aside from astrology and spirituality matters, I love anime. On Instagram, I have my name as like the spiritual nerd because I feel like it describes me so well. And, you know, I see all these other people in the spiritual community and there are so many different colorful personalities in the spiritual community. There's not one type of personality that is spiritual, but I do see, like, I haven't really seen anybody openly express that they're very like nerdy and geeky and spiritual. I've seen little bits and pieces, but for me, I used to like cosplay and I uploaded a ton of cosplay to my Instagram and I love cosplaying. I love anime. Anime has been a huge part of my life since I was young. I also love video games, even though I don't have like many of the up-to-date video games. My boyfriend and I just have a Nintendo Switch. And so occasionally when I have the time, I love to play Pokemon Sword and Shield. I love playing Harvest Moon. My boyfriend just bought me the new Harvest Moon and I haven't sat down to play it yet because I know how I am. Once I really like a game, it's hard for me to step away from it. I get addicted, which is so bad because I have things to do. But I love Harvest Moon. I love games that people might consider like boring, but for me, if I'm playing a video game, a lot of times I want to just chill, zone out, listen to some music and do something that's easygoing and cheerful and uplifting. And I find games that like Harvest Moon and Pokemon and stuff are really like fun, uplifting, but not too hard to play at the same time. But if I'm looking for a challenging game to play, the game franchise that I have loved since I was little is the Final Fantasy franchise. Oh, my heart, Yuna, she has forever been like one of my #1 role models since I was young. Yes, a video game character is my role model. No shame. I would say video games, anime, geeky, nerdy stuff is a huge part of my interests and hobbies outside of astrology and spirituality. Number 3. What led you to start your spiritual journey? I'm gonna try and not make this answer too long, but my spiritual journey started I would like to say maybe when I was like really young, being a Pisces child especially, I always felt very in tune. You know, there were like, this is like kind of embarrassing to admit, but to the point where sometimes I would just walk around in my yard, or my parents' yard, because the house that I grew up in, we had like a really big yard. And sometimes I would just go outside on a sunny day and it would be like windy, and we had all these like really big maple trees in our yard. So it was like all green and the trees were rustling and the wind was blowing and my hair was blowing in the wind. And I would literally walk around the yard really slowly, around the rim of the yard, super slow, just feeling the wind in my hair, and sing to myself. And I almost got caught once, and I got so embarrassed because like I hate to show, I've always been really embarrassed to show those sides of myself to other people. It's a complex that I've always had, and something that I honestly and actively still need to work on, and I do work on. But there was something about me that I knew was very like aware of my surroundings in like a spiritual sense. Not necessarily in like a paranoid way, but more so just taking everything in all the time. And I was also very, very sensitive to everything around me. I don't know how to explain it. So I've always had this innate feeling since I was young. But as I mentioned before in a podcast I was recently in, and in my first Spirituality for Beginners video, and I'll leave the links to both of those down below if you're interested and you haven't listened to the podcast yet. It's really good. But anyways, so as I mentioned before, I grew up in a religious household, specifically Roman Catholic. And even though I always had this deep inner feeling that there is a greater power, there is something out there that is unexplainable, that we just can feel is there, like everything is divine. I knew there was something very divine about the world around me, but as I grew older and older and learned more and more about the constructs of religion itself, I didn't agree with it, and it didn't resonate with me because it felt like it was taking something away from me spiritually. It felt like instead of focusing on that inner spiritual feeling, that connection that we have to the divine, it felt like it was more focused on like a set of rules and a set of regulations and proving ourselves. And it just, a lot of things felt very toxic and wrong as I grew older and more educated and more aware of my own existence and what I wanted. And if you are someone who chooses the religious route, there's nothing wrong with that. But for me personally, it didn't resonate. So it took a relationship, a very serious relationship that I had. It was my first serious relationship where I completely jumped ship and moved out to live with him, far away from my family and everything. And he was very religious, and I don't want to sound like I'm speaking down on him, because I have forgiven everything that has happened in this relationship. I wish him nothing but the best, and him and I are actually on good terms. I'm not trying to speak poorly of him, but the relationship itself, the reality was that it was toxic, it was narcissistic, and it was just a bad relationship. And his stance in the relationship is that he was very religious. He was a devout Christian, or he was trying to be a devout Christian. And he really, really, really hammered that onto me. And because I loved him, I wanted to listen to him and base my life off of the things that he wanted, because I really looked up to him because he was 5 years older than me, and I felt like he had to know way more than me. Like he had to be way wiser than I could be, you know? So I really just trusted in him in that way, and kind of started following whatever he was into, whatever he told me to do. And one of those things was Christianity, even though I knew it didn't resonate with me. And there would be times where we would be out at a store and I would see like books on the chakras and astrology, and I would gravitate towards them, and he would always tell me like, no, like don't get too into that. Like that stuff is not, it's not good, you know? And I remember that hurt so much, because I was like, why? I love it. I have always been fascinated by the idea of astrology and things like chakras and crystals and all of these Eastern spiritual things and all of these indigenous spiritual practices that started to come more to the surface in the Western world. but I felt like I couldn't explore them because I was told that they were bad energy and things you shouldn't mess with. So once that relationship finally came to an end and I started to rediscover myself, I started diving deeper into astrology. And by doing that, naturally, I started to delve into the world of crystals, of chakras, etc. And I read books by Tik Tok. That was my first step into a different spiritual mindset, is when I started to read more about Buddhism itself and the ideology behind Buddhism. And that's when I was like, oh my God, like this is so powerful. And this type of thinking was like mind-blowing, and it inspired and sparked something in me that I hadn't felt in a long time. And that's when I decided to start just going full throttle. And my boyfriend and I, my current boyfriend and I, we would actually sit in Barnes and Noble. Like before the pandemic happened, we would go to Barnes and Noble and we would just separate for a bit, find a bunch of books that we wanted to read, and then meet back at the cafe, the little like cafe that Barnes and Noble usually has, and we would just sit there and read and read and read. So I would just read all of these astrology books, Buddhism books, different spirituality books, and I was just super consuming everything. But in doing so, I was still trying to figure out my own spiritual path as well. And that's, I think, a never-ending journey. I don't think that you ever have like one definitive spiritual path if you're like me in that way. And maybe that'll change. We're always changing. But for right now, I feel like I just do what feels right. You don't really need to define it if you don't want to. Don't give in to the pressure that other people might put on you to do so. But that's how I got started on my spiritual journey. Anyways, those are the few questions that I got that people wanted me to answer if I made this video. And I hope that this video was kind of a nice change of pace. I really like making it. It was nice to showcase a little bit more of myself outside of my usual structured, very educational videos that I make. And if you enjoyed this video, please do leave a comment down below letting me know that you enjoyed it. Let me know what you thought. Please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to hit the bell. Thank you so much for being here. And if you do need some more astrological spiritual education, you can watch these videos, or to see a more personal side of my journey, you can head over to my Instagram at Marisa LaBlue. And don't forget that I have links down below of other stuff you might be interested in seeing. Thank you so much, and until next time, adios.